Hi, I'm Walter, and I'm the Dutch mentor, and welcome back to our Monday morning chat about leadership. Today, I have Lauren Perry with me from Long Island with a nice New Yorker accent, but she is now working across the Northeast with a great company. But interesting enough, and like I've said in the past, I try to bring people on with different points of view. And if you are looking for somebody today who went straight from the bottom to straight to the top, this is not your conversation. And those are boring conversations anyhow. Lauren has taken a road left and right and a couple of twists and turns to get where she is. But you'll find out in the next 15 minutes her passion to where she is today, and the impact she's having on people and the company's performance is phenomenal. So I welcome Lauren to our podcast, and I look forward to having our chat over the next 15, 20 minutes and learn more about you. So take it away. Tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. So a little bit about myself. I've got a little bit of a unique background, as you just mentioned. I wasn't always in the people operations world. I started there, then was scared away, and didn't know exactly what it was to be in the people world. And I took a little bit of a sidecar left and became a mental health therapist and spent my master's learning more about the foundations of people being, their behaviors, motivations. And I loved it. I liked working with people and understanding their needs and root causes. But it wasn't for me in the long run. I don't know if I could do that long standing. And I think it takes a very smart and brave person to do that. I respect that workforce of therapists out there. But I needed to take a moment and take a step back to be retrospective of like, what is it that Lauren is good at? What is it that would take me to my next level that I know that I can find the ladder and figure out my way up top? And I know I needed a day to go and like have a structure, have a plan, have objectives, feel that I can, end my day and close my laptop accomplished. And I learned more about the people operations world again. And it was hard for me actually, because people were not interested in my background. They're like, this is not relevant. I want real core experience in people operations. Have you done this before? And I didn't. I did it for a year before, and it was a long time ago before we entered. But I decided to push that limit. And that's always the thing I mention to people is don't be afraid of what you know. Imposter syndrome is real. I suffer from it all the time. But don't be afraid to create the story that's for yourself. And that is what I did. I said, well, actually, I am the right candidate because my 2 years of experience has given me the best level of exposure in real life of how to coach somebody, how to understand somebody's needs, their motivators, how to work with people that may be a little bit different because that's just who we are. We're all people, right? So I took that, and that's kind of what has grabbed on a lot of my HR experience that people have found it super helpful. And jobs are like, I need that experience. I need somebody that knows a little bit more about the human brain and motivators, and it can support employees. And that is kind of how I entered back into the people operations world and learning about all the different areas. Then I wanted to, there's a bunch of areas in people operations, L&D, compensation, operations, but I wanted to find the right thing that was for me. And so the business partner world was newer when I started. And I was like, yes, this is my world. And why is because I went back to my roots of what I said before of I like the diagnosing. I like problem solving. I like to help figure out the unlocked potential for whether it's a business, a team, or a person. And that's what I really did. I went into the business partner world and figured out how to use my superpower skills of diagnosing, finding root causes. And I help that with businesses and their teams, or even people when people just need that extra help with support, like they feel stuck in their career path, they're looking for a promotion, but they don't know how to do it, or they don't feel like this is even the right role for them. How do they get out of it? I sit with employees, I sit with leaders, and I have all of those conversations every day. And it's kind of got to where I am today.
Excellent. Listen, I love your story. And so to make sure that people understand is that making big critical career decisions is a very, very scary concept, right? From a financial standpoint, from an emotional standpoint, but also from an educational standpoint. And from what I understand from your background, you started off with the HR foundation as a bachelor's degree, and then you make the leap and you said, listen, let me go to mental health and get a master's degree. So kudos to you for taking that leap. I always encourage people to dream big and act small, right? If you dream big, and even when you get to your dream bigger. But it is the little steps that you take along the way. So tell me a little bit about it, give a little insight on the critical decisions you made on how did you go from HR to mental health to get that master's degree there? How scary was that? And what did you do for yourself to make sure that you had the security to be able to do that?
Yeah. So when I was finishing up my internship in that year in the HR, I just wasn't happy. And I was like, I can't do this. Like, this is not where I want to be 10 years from now. And so I was looking, literally just Googling, like, what are master's degrees? Because at the time, I think like, getting your master's was like the thing to have. And so everyone's like, you needed a master's to get a job. Like, so I knew that was my next step in my like journey. And I was like, I want to be intentional. Like, what should I get my master's in? I looked at MBAs and I was like, God, to spend all that money on something that like, I don't know, what would I focus on? Do I do HR in that? But I wasn't happy. I don't want to commit to all of it. And I was at my alma mater just looking at like other master's degrees, and I came over mental health therapy. And it was a newer program because it's usually either like you go for psychology and get your doctorate or social work. Mental health counseling was newer. And I was like, oh, I like people. Like I've always thought of myself of like being a helpful person. You know, when I read those courses, like, all right, I could do this. And I was like fully committed. I just literally jumped in with 2 feet and I was like, this is my career path. I could totally see it. And I was already thinking big, as you mentioned. I was like, after this, getting my doctorate, I'm going to go to IO. And I finished my degree. I was going for it. And I think the best thing that probably happened to me in my life was when I applied, and I just kept getting rejection after rejection at those doctorate schools. Me and my best friend were like, we're going together. We're going to do this. She got in and I didn't. And it made me have to make a real hard look on my life of like, all right, well, am I going to keep doing this? Can I do this? Do I want to do this? Like, I'm not feeling happy in my day. You know, I thought going back to school would help. And I said, okay, no, I got to rethink. And I did that again. I sat with myself. I leaned on my parents to help like talk me through what that is. And then I decided to go back into HR. You know, I had friends that were in the field and I would talk to them and they would like tell me about their days. And I kind of got back excited of like, oh no, this is what I used to do. And I like reignited that like, all right, maybe that's what I need. And then I did more research on the new world of people operations and getting back into that like motion. And then I got my SHRM and I just went in that path and I found the thing within the people operations that made sense for me. And I think that was the biggest thing of there's so much to any different career. You don't just need to pick one and then like you stick to it. You find the thing that makes sense for you and you make that your go-to place. So obviously there's generalist worlds and I like that too. And I consider myself a generalist. I can pop around in most of the different like departments in HR. But I know my strengths and that's where I leaned in.
Excellent. Listen, congratulations for taking that leap. And really what you're talking about is that a systematic approach, right? Is that admit to yourself that I'm not happy, right? Stop lying to yourself. 2 is to make sure you surround yourself by the people who love you and understand you and ask for their opinion and for their help and their guidance. And then take a leap of faith. You know, sometimes you have to try new things out to see if you like it and feel connected, and don't be afraid to make another change in life. And I certainly have made those changes along the way, and it only has made me a better person because of it. And I really get to, you know, I can honestly say that I'm one of the 22% of the people who come to work with a smile on their face every single day. That means that 72% of people who go to work on a day-to-day basis not being happy, right? So that is important. So I think you mentioned to me that the HR business partner, it's a bit of a newer concept. I was also introduced to that probably about in 2017, 18,
Yep.
and I really, really like it. So one of the functions of HR business partner is, of course, talent management and being connected to operations itself, having the right people in the right roles.
Yep.
I would like to take the conversation in really 2 questions. The first question would be, is that what is the leader's responsibility combined with the business partner to cultivate the team that you have today? And then maybe the takeaway, some lesson that people can take away. What is it that people can do who'd like to be considered talent, or is it our talent, and what they can do on a day-to-day basis in order to elevate their performance?
That's a great question. So from a leader, and then it's almost in the word, you need to lead. And I think that's sometimes the biggest miss of that is leaders sometimes depend too much on business partners or the people team to think that it's our jobs to do it when we are really like the supporting function to help enable them. We help put the system, the tool, but it is only truly possible to have and foster a strong culture of growth or a culture of performance, impact, feeling of just you can come into work every day and be like, yeah, this is where I want to be, is when the leader truly takes like hold of their title of a leader and leads. And owns it and demonstrates it and shows like, hey, I have failed and this is how I have learned, or not, hand slapping mistakes and, celebrating them at the same time of like, hey, that was okay. We learned, right? That's the biggest takeaway, is that we figured it out sooner, and looking for a little bit more sometimes like the positive, because people can get so crushed in an environment where you feel like you can't learn, and you feel like you can't grow, or there's no opportunity for mistake. And so I think the biggest piece of advice I always give to my leaders, and like the role between us, is that I'm here to help support you, but you have to be the one that rides and drives the bus. Or if you want to use a plane, you're the pilot, I'm the co-pilot. And I think that's when systems get broken, is when I'm the pilot, people don't listen to it as much because they want to hear from their leaders, the people that they're following, right? That's you join a company or a career because you're following somebody in like their mission, their goals, and what they're aiming for. So that's what I say as like a big thing for the role of leaders and how our roles differentiate. And then for an employee, the biggest I think sometimes mistake employees can make on this, or they forget, is that you own your career path. Right. It is it's up to the business to help foster a culture, an environment where we can enable you to do that. But the only way that you're ever going to kind of get to where you want to go is that you have to make that step. You have to be proactive in that engagement, in that conversation, in the ask, and what you need and what you're looking for, because your managers are running, however fast and juggling their jobs, the 15 other people on their team. Sometimes they need somebody to pull up that stop sign, right? And that's the role of business partner, that we help make sure like managers are slowing down and they're having that like focused attention. But sometimes they need that extra stop sign of like, hey, pay attention to me. I've got questions. I've got needs. I've got things I want to talk about. And like, this is your role, so help me. And I think sometimes a lot of employees, they're like, well, no, you need to do this for me. And it's like, you got to do it for yourself, because the only way that it sticks is if you have that internal motivation to drive. Because as a manager, I can get you to point A and B, which is like, yeah, here's your next level. But the only person that is going to get you to where you want to go is you, because you know what that end role is and whatever that is for you. And you use the business on how to drive it. Right. And I think that's like the thing I have done with my own career. And I tell people, and I have told people I've coached of like, hey, listen, sometimes where you are is not the right fit right now. Go leave. You staying here is not helpful to yourself. Obviously, the business will be upset, like if you left and like we want you to stay, but sometimes you have to go for your own career. You got to find out a different place, go get a different experience, then you can come back, right? Because that's maybe what it takes for you to get to what your dream role is here, because this place can't offer it yet. And so my biggest thing is take your career path by the two horns and drive, because like that is how you're going to get to the end of whatever that is.
Great advice. So, and I encourage everybody to adopt what we call an individual development plan.
Yeah.
And it is owned, like today, most organizations are still stuck in the performance evaluation. To me, boo, I would rip them up, do them away, because these things are done once a year, and they collect dust for 12 months. An individual development plan is owned by the employee, right? And that is your journey map on how to get from point A to point B. It helps you with the communication engagement with your leader on a regular basis to that. So obviously, one of the things that I've seen in my career, and then working with a lot of folks in middle to upper management, the transition from doing to leading is large.
Oh, yeah.
And most high-performing doers who become leaders, they continue to do. Right? It is, and they get stuck in that valley of despair. That listen, now I'm the leader, but I really don't enjoy leading. Why is that? Because you're still doing while you should be leading. So how do you help overcome that valley of despair? How do you show people the difference between doing and leading?
I think one, it's a want. Well, there's two. There's a skill and a want. I think people need to, as we've talked about, like do the self-reflection. Like it's okay if you want to be the one that's the doer, right? That's where people choose to thrive. You have to want to lead. You have to want to be able to take a step back and not have your hands in the pot. And it's a hard thing to teach. You can coach on it and you can like give the right, like, hey, this is a good opportunity to delegate and talk through it. But if that person is not ready to separate from that, it's never possible, in my opinion, because it's just ingrained in who they are. I sometimes believe there is that like statement, like they're just natural born leaders. And it comes out. Leadership can also mean different things, right? It doesn't just mean you're leading a whole company or leading a team. It's you're a leader in what you do as well. Your leadership within like your one specific area, your expertise. But to lead a team and to be able to drive that motivation, I think takes a very unique skill. I also think that person needs to be able to relinquish control. I think that's the hardest skill that I've seen from leaders that have like struggled with that, is like just letting go and seeing what happens, because they're so used to being part of it and like strive for perfectionism, when sometimes the biggest thing, and it takes time, people get used to it. It's, you have to like get trust with your like leadership team and all of the people below, and show them that like the boat still goes, you're not sinking, right? Even if one thing happened to fail, you see how you're still going. And that's been the biggest thing I always like coach leaders on. And in most situations, like just go try it, like let it happen, deal with the discomfort, and then let's work through it. Let's talk about how it felt and like put some like realism in place. Did this break? Did this fall? Are you not meeting your OKRs anymore? Or was it small setback? And that kind of helps leaders like, okay, here, I can do this again. And you're basically like exposure therapy with them of like, all right, do it again. Let's see how it goes. And that's kind of how I've been able to coach some leaders. But I think, again, back to what makes the difference is the person and their readiness to do it.
Yeah. I think the readiness is the key to that, is if the people are not open to that, right? People who are not fully committed, self-directed, or people who are looking at themselves as both the owner and the performer, it becomes difficult, right? The goal is a shift from the owner to the performer, with accountability back to the owner itself, with the least amount of disruption in the middle of that. Yeah, I always say this, that when we talk about leadership, the 4 key responsibilities: you have to do, you have to improve, you have to look for opportunities to look into the future. Depending on where you are on the hierarchy, you have to spend different percentage amount of time in each of those categories. The doing never goes away. And I always say the key question is to ask yourself is that when you're doing something, do I have to do this? And the answer, if it is, as difficult as it may be, if they say, I don't need to do it, then you shouldn't be doing it. You should be delegating it, because the delegation is the opportunity for growth at the next level. So great conversation. What are your closing thoughts on this? Listen, I think we could keep this going for another hour, but we have to end the good stuff somewhere. So what are your closing thoughts?
Closing thoughts. There's a lot, but I would say don't be afraid of the unknown, because the unknown is where you learn. The unknown is where you're challenged and you actually grow the fastest. If you're doing something and you just know how to do it and you go through your day, that means you've stopped. You've stopped your career path growth. You've stopped learning, and you can't actually continue forward if you have a goal of something else. So that is my biggest thing, is if you are not uncomfortable most of the time in your job, that means that you're not learning anymore. And if you want to continue to drive up a career path, you have to be in a constant state of uncomfortable, because you're going to be learning everything new. And if you stop learning, that's okay if you want to be that too. But that is my biggest thing. I'm always uncomfortable.
And I think that little discomfort is a key driver to success, right? Those people who get lazy, become complacent, often limit themselves. And of course, if they sadly lead people, they limit other people as well. Again, people don't leave companies; they often leave poor managers and poor leaders. So that's something that you, as a business partner, myself as an executive coach, that's what we're trying to prevent from taking place. Of course, Lauren, thank you very much for your time. It was a wonderful conversation. Much success in your career, and I'm sure that you will bring in all the talent you need and continue to develop them. You're doing all the right things right. And I'm sure that you have a big dream. Continue on your pursuit to your big dream. And I look forward to another conversation in the future someday.
Yes, thank you very much.
We'll talk real soon again.
Bye.
Bye-bye.